79 loyalist skulls in the pile. 79 loyalist skulls. Crush one to dust and drink it with blood. 78 loyalist skulls in the pile. Now, the timeline has progressed. It is 1995, April 3rd, 17 hours, 17 minutes, 42 seconds. Good, good. All has been established, all is well and correct in the world. Now we may begin. We may begin. Indeed. With what? Who knows? We'll find out soon. Now. Greetings and welcome. I am Karonto. That's gonna become a mess. Karonto. Sure, fuck it, as if I know how to pronounce my own name. I mean, I made it up as a kid. And simply for like a RuneScape account. Without even thinking how it sounded or how it could be pronounced. Pure text-based. Anyway, so whatever pronunciation I deem, that is what it is. Anyway, today I'll be doing a visual novel about samurai called Wander No More. At least I think it's about samurai. That's what the images on the Steam thing suggested it. That's what the setting here looks like. Medieval Japan and all the other stuff. I'm sure I read the synopsis or whatever on the page at some point when I got this. If I did at all. Anyway, the tone of the music, the visuals, and everything else, it very clearly indicates that it's samurai stuff. And there's battle sounds in the background as well. This is going to be dramatic as well, isn't it? Good, cool, excellent. Now, before we begin properly, we do have to prophetically, yes, prophetically, we ask for guidance from theonion.com, as always, and they have responded in kind, and they instruct us to have a glimpse of a timeline of Abraham Lincoln's life, published on February 20th, 2017. Every February, people across the nation celebrate the legacy of Abraham Lincoln, widely considered to be one of America's finest presidents. The Onion provides a timeline of the key moments in President Lincoln's life, as they would, for they are the finest American news source. 1809. Abraham Lincoln is born on February 12th and immediately sworn in as the 16th President of the United States. They knew it's a prophecy. 1817. In one terrifying night, Lincoln has the first and only growth spurt of his life, expanding from 4 feet 3 inches to 6 feet 4 inches in a matter of hours amid the hellish sounds of snapping bones and tendons. While visiting New Orleans in 1828, he observes a slave auction, has an itchy nose during the bidding, and accidentally purchases a lot of 2 dozen black men. 1860. Feeling depressed while writing his autobiography, Lincoln fails to mention himself even once. It happens to the best of us. 1865, April 14th, Lincoln is assassinated. 1865, April 15th, Lincoln resumes the presidency and serves out the rest of his term. It is good that even death cannot stop a fine man as him. Indeed. Indeed, let us never forget and never forgive. Opa, the cat wants to go away now. Apparently. We'll see how long it takes for him to come back and alert me to his presence over something. Who knows? It's a common thing. Now, with that out of the way, what else has happened? Is there anything else for me to mention? Not really. Oh, I guess I kind of have started using like a little thing to lift up the microphone a bit closer to my face. So it might sound a bit different. Yes, I know, audio changes again. It's a thing. Hopefully it's better. I always think it is, and then a day or two later, after listening back to the latest recording, I think it's shit again. And then I go around changing things again. And then I come across a thing that I think sounds good or better, and then basically it's the same, more or less. Because because I have not gone insane. Yes. Definition of insanity there. That absolutely applies to me and my escapades with audio changes and stuff like that. Repeating the same thing over and over and over again, expecting something to change and be different. And just... Look, I'm not a smart man. Not a smart man, so let's ignore all that, fuck it, everything. Blech. Let's just start. Let's just go. Alright, there's a disclaimer here. Wanda no More takes place on an alternate Earth. Though obviously based off feudal Japan, the towns described in Wanda no More are completely fictional, as are the characters, events, and so on. Any similarities to real people, places, or events are entirely coincidental. Do not expect historical references or any mention of real wars or events. Wanda no More is just an indie game that was made to be enjoyed. I understand. I do understand. That is very straightforward and simple. I appreciate that. Alternate Earth. Alright. Let's see. Ooh, will this have like supernatural elements or something like that? I guess we'll find out. Now, when I was a boy, joining Kodokushi was my dream. Every day I heard tales of their exploits, whether they were protecting our land, driving away enemy forces, or taking the fight directly to them. They were hailed as an elite military force, devoted to protecting and expanding my kingdom's reach, and always serving the people righteously. My kingdom's reach, so we are the prince or something like that. Well, effectively the equivalent to a prince. Thanks to them, we could live without fear of being conquered. In fact, our territory actually expanded as time went on, all thanks to their tireless efforts and unyielding bravery. The Kodokushi were truly our saviors, the most forthright, noble souls in the country, if not the world. Believing that from the bottom of my heart, I trained every day, single-mindedly working towards my goal of joining the Kodokushi. I grew up to be a strong, fast, flexible, beyond the reach of any of my peers. As a result, before I even reached adulthood, I was already a top contender to join the Kodokushi, and the day I hit 18, I was welcomed with open arms. It was the happiest moment of my life. A decade of training had paid off, and my dream had been realized. And then everything's on fire. Great. Good job. Fucking hell, it's always some fuckers burning the village. And then we are on a quest for revenge. And something like that. Or like they stole a princess or something like that. I saw there was a female character in like the images on like the Steam page. I remember that enough. So like, somebody he knows gets kidnapped. And we must avenge the deaths and the burning of the village. Anyway, or so I thought. The village standing before me now, burnt to a crisp and devoid of human life, was the work of the Kodokushi. Oh, shit. Well, damn. Alright, everything you knew and stood for. Well, that's a turnaround. It was not an enemy village. There were no combatants to be found here, nor did its inhabitants pose any threat. But it's politics. It was just an ordinary, everyday village, stuck between two opposing kingdoms. Resources, scorched earth, things. Could be anything. And for the Kodokushi, that was reason enough. After joining the Kodokushi, I quickly realized that our work was neither noble nor righteous, while you are soldiers in a war. That doesn't exist. Noble or righteous. Warriors do what warriors need to do. In war, you pillage, you plunder, you murder, and you commit war crimes. Just, to win. Everything else is irrelevant. We were not saviors of the people. We were not almighty defenders protecting innocent civilians from harm. We were a death squad. Every day we would venture forth, treading just a little bit further away from home, searching for the enemy. The enemy. quote-unquote, the enemy, of course. The enigmatic them, who we can blame all our woes and worries on. Of course. Tale literally as old as human history. There's always somebody to blame. An honorable task to be sure. Sure it is. It seems honorable. That's the point. It seems honorable. We would drive away any threats before they could further encroach upon our land, taking the fight away from innocent passerby. Encroach. Before it could further encroach. The seeds of hostility. It's always there. It's always always like they could become a threat. They are worshipping other gods. They are proclaiming these radical ideas of change. Encroaching threat. They are not like us. They are different. They wear different clothes. They smell different. They act different. It's always the same. It's always the same. It's always the same with humanity like that. But as I soon learned, the Kodokushi's definition of an enemy differed vastly from my own. Any village not under our kingdom's direct control, or not paying us a protection fee, would be decimated. Of course. Thousands of innocent people, whose only crime was to not grow up under our jurisdiction, were killed in cold blood, never even given the chance to surrender. We slaughtered men, women and children, even newborn babies, all in the name of our lord, the Emperor. I should have known they would follow me here. Nobody leaves the Kodokushi alive, no matter how high their rank or how long they served. Now, because I chose to flee here, those people are all...
The bastard isn't here either.
What? Oh shit. No. Oh crap. We have actual voice acting? I did not know that. Ah shit. We can't have that. I am the voice here. We can have... we can have Japanese voice acting, but we can't have English. That's the whole point of me, so... I didn't know that. Sorry, voice actors. I'm sure you did a great job, but I'm here to do that here. That's the point of what I do here. So apologies, but also not really. Also, another insight, if you want to hear the voice actors, get the game yourself. I'm not here to, give you just a straight up full playthrough uninterrupted. Fuck that. You can get that elsewhere. I am here to do my thing, and that's what I'm gonna do. And that is why we are here. So anyway, the bastard isn't here either. Are we even going the right way? This is Captain Nabatame we're talking about. He knows how we operate. He's probably heading in the opposite direction. Damn, I hadn't thought about that. Let's keep moving. Wherever he's headed, Captain Nabatame isn't here. I watched in silence from a nearby forest as the last of the Kodokushi moved on. I had successfully evaded their surveillance and hidden myself by blending in with my surroundings, just as the Kodokushi themselves had taught me. So I waited, patiently biding my time until the last unit left my sight, at which point I could finally relax once more. Those bloodhounds don't give up. No, you should know. It's understandable that they would want to silence me, given what I know, but to chase me this far away from the kingdom... Even I won't be able to evade them forever. Though still alight, I returned to the village the Kodokushi had just passed through. I had been running for weeks, and I desperately needed food and water, much more than I could find while fleeing through desolate wastelands and forest. If I hurry, maybe I can find some supplies before they're all burnt to ash. I don't care what it is. At this point, plain rice and water would be enough. With that simple goal in mind, I wandered around the village, quickly checking each building for scraps of food. I put out fires where I could, using sheets and other miscellaneous pieces of cloth to deny oxygen to the flames, but as far as food was concerned, I found nothing. Only bloody corpses and scorched rations remain, leaving me without a single morsel to eat. Come on, there has to be something edible around here that hasn't been torched. How poor does a village have to be to not have... As I frantically searched for food, I heard a faint whimper from within one of the houses. I immediately abandoned my search and headed to the next house over, quickly putting out the flames as I listened for the voice I heard moments ago. But even without another sound to go on, there was only one other room in the house, and the moment I opened the door, I saw... Oh shit, a girl who's lost an arm. Well, a hand. That sucks. But place is burning, lady. Mama. Papa. within a burning village, one in which no survivors should have remained, was a young girl. A single girl, crying alone in the house's storeroom, surrounded by rations I would have killed for mere minutes ago. As my gaze rested on the girl, however, food was the last thing on my mind. All I could see was a young girl, orphaned by an unwarranted, unprovoked attack, for which I was responsible. Ah yeah, damn. Amazing, this little girl actually managed to hide herself from the Kodokushi. I'm the one they're after, of course, and they've been pursuing me for weeks now, so it's not unthinkable that a few innocents might escape their grasp. Even so... Huh? I opened the storeroom's door wider, revealing my presence to the girl sobbing within. She gazed at me in shock, not expecting me to be discovered, and no doubt wondering whether I was friend or foe. And once her eyes made their way to the katana at my hip, she had her answer. Mama, Papa, help me. Once again crying out for her parents, the young girl moved back, trying to put as much distance between us as she could. She pushed back with her legs, scraping her tattered yukata on the floor while tightly holding something in her hand. Even as she almost tipped over, the girl didn't use her hands. She instead grasped tightly at her wrist, refusing to let go. That was when I realized that this girl had lost more than just her family. This poor girl. She can't be any older than 14 years old, yet she's already lost not only her family, but also a limb. Even if she survives, life isn't going to be easy for her. Everyone she once knew is now dead, and her village will need repairs impossible for a girl with one hand. Would it be kinder of me to end her misery? No, it wouldn't. No. Let's not do that. I put my hand on the hilt of my katana, which dangled warily from my hip. As I did so, the girl before me let out an inaudible whimper and froze on the spot. Little girl, what's your name? Koichiro. That's our name. Koichiro. Koichiro. Sure, let's go with that. Koichiro. The girl opened her mouth to speak, but hesitated to actually respond. Her vocal cords, like the rest of her body, froze in my presence, wary that the blade at my hip was not just for show. Chiyo, Ayase. Though barely audible, the girl before me answered, her voice wavering as she did. Tell me, Chiyo, do you want to live? Chiyo continued to stare at me with fear in her eyes, likely interpreting my question as a threat. I don't. I see. I drew my katana from its sheath and pointed its tip towards the girl's throat. I thought my days of killing defenseless children were over, but just this once. I slowly pulled my katana to the side, preparing to cut down the girl before me with a single strike. With a simple flick of the wrist, I would behead her, granting instant death to a girl who deserved no further pain. If that is your wish, Chiyo, then I don't want to die. A second before I could swing my blade, Chiyo shouted out, finally completing her answer. Immobilized by fear, her words reached my ears in fragments, giving the illusion that the girl wished for death. But with strong conviction and an unmistakable will to live, Chiyo's true desire reached my ears at last, and the blade in my hand lost all of its power. What an impressive girl. Even with her entire life going up in flames, she still hasn't lost her will to live. Regardless, she's still just a young girl, and a child with one hand cannot hope to survive out here on her own. If she's going to have any shot at survival, then... Alright, Chiyo, I understand. If you truly wish to live, then as the one responsible for all of this, it is my duty to make sure that happens. I sheathed my blade and reached out my hand towards the shivering girl. My name is Koichiro Nabatame. I am a traitor on the run from my kingdom. And from this day onward, Chiyo, you are my daughter. Okay, just straight up like that. Just make it, okay, I guess. Sure. I guess. Just, well, I guess he's decisive at the very least. Sure. Alright. Hotsu Village, home of the merciful Nabatame family. In the year that passed since its destruction, Hotsu Village has slowly been restored. All by ourselves, Chiyo and I have worked tirelessly to bring life back to this village, and although we are still a long way from finished, our efforts have not been in vain. The houses I was able to save from the fire have been undergoing steady repairs, mostly at the hands of yours truly, to the point where many of the buildings are habitable once more. Chiyo, unable to assist with the manual labor, familiarized herself with the neighboring forest and took on the role of a gatherer, amassing fruit and berries for the two of us to eat. She also showed me where her family used to go for water, a river within the forest, in which the two of us now bathe. Like so, we were able to secure the bare essentials: food, water, and shelter. We developed a routine, divided our duties, and eventually learned to trust one another with our lives. Just like a real family. Well, that's nice. Old one. Oh my, if it isn't Chia-chan. Are you done gathering food already? As I wandered through the village, the mention of a familiar name caught my attention. Almost. Just more basket and I'll be done. You are a good girl. Koichiro-sama doesn't know how lucky he is to have such a wonderful young girl by his side. Following Chiyo's voice, I turned around the corner to find her conversing with an elderly woman whose name I had not yet learned. Ah, speak of the devil. Good morning, Nabatame-san. Please, be at ease. Just call me Koichiro, like everyone else does. Understood, Koichiro-sama. So, are you here to check up on Chiyo-chan? Don't be silly. Ko is just looking for work that needs to be done. Oh, is that so? I wouldn't be surprised. Koichiro-sama just can't sit still, can he? I kinda like this art style. I actually do like it. It's neat. It's different. Not until this village has been restored to its former glory. Unless you'd like to take over for me, of course. Careful what you say. I might just take you up on that offer. Of course, you'd have to take over weaving clothing for everyone in my place. Weaving? That I would like to see. I retract my offer. But if you need a loom, I might be able to make you one. There are only minor repairs needed on the houses, so as long as we don't take in any new vagrants, I should have enough spare wood. Oh, Koichiro-sama, that would be wonderful. You have no idea how much time and effort goes into making a single article of clothing. Is it really that difficult? I should be done gathering food soon, so if you need help... Ah, no, you don't have to do that, Chiyo-chan. My hands may be old and weary, but as long as they still serve a purpose, I'll be happy. Besides, there's no way I could gather food like you do. Let's each do our part, okay? Yeah, okay. On that note, the elderly woman walked away, wearing a troubled smile as she did. Weaving, like so many other tasks undertaken by members of our village, required 2 hands. Knowing this, the woman tried to let Chiyo down gently, reaffirming her place as a vital gatherer. But for Chiyo, that wasn't enough. Even as this town has taken in migrant after migrant, Chiyo's sense of responsibility hasn't changed in the slightest. From day one, she's tried to do her best in every aspect, taking on tasks we both knew she couldn't possibly complete. And as the one person here who knows Chiyo better than anyone else, I know all too well what happens to her when her disability prevents Chiyo from doing her part. You know, Chiyo, even if traditional weaving requires 2 hands, the same cannot be said for looms. Would you like me to make a loom for you as well? Are you saying that I might possibly be able to weave after all? I am indeed. Besides, if I'm making one loom, it shouldn't be difficult to make another while I'm at it. What do you say? Do you want to give it a shot? Absolutely, I definitely want to try it. Koichiro, you're the best. I'll remember you said that. Now, let's get back to work. I'm just about to start on the wooden bowls you've been asking for, so make sure to bring back enough to fill them, okay? Of course, you can count on me. Alright, well, at least she's regained her spirit and spunk and all that stuff. Spunk, it's a weird word, actually. Where does that come from? Spunk. It's weird, it sounds like it should be some kind of bit of different type of connotation to it, but whatever. My mind is weird. Okay, let's just move on from that sentence and thought onto... Full of spirit once more, Chiyo dashed off with a skip in her step, eager to complete her morning duties. Phew, that was a close one. What was that old lady thinking? It may not be a rule, but even a newcomer should have the sense to not shoot down Chiyo like that. That just keeps happening in the background, I can't help it, that's too much. And of course, the end result is that I now need to make 2 looms, despite the fact that I've never made even one. Honestly, it's time like this when I miss living alone with Chiyo. Even if it was more work, life was simpler back then. I only had to look out for Chiyo and I, and our duties were divided evenly, making for a straightforward, routine life. Now this village houses a dozen or so residents, most of them whom I don't even know the name of. Worse, half of them are too old or young to be put to work, so jobs can't be divided evenly. Without realizing it, I've become the leader of a budding village of wanderers. Well, hey, stuff happens. A few hours passed by since I spoke to Chio, and true to my promise, I greeted her with a pair of wooden bowls. Fucking words. English fucks me up like that. Whoa, those are really, functional. Well, I appreciate the effort. You needn't say a word. I can see how terrible they are. Oh, don't be like that. They aren't that bad. Oh, I haven't even noticed that. Let's put myself to the side here instead, I guess. Let's put, yes, let's not obscure the characters over there. Yes. They are on the left, I shall be on the right. Oh, don't be like that. They aren't that bad. They just need a little fixing up, that's all. Preferably by someone else. You said it. The sooner we get more able-bodied men around here, the better. As much as I enjoyed the solitary lifestyle Chio and I shared, it didn't take long for the two of us to realize we didn't possess the skills necessary to rebuild a village. For obvious reasons, I took on the manual labor, but that didn't change the fact that I lacked any knowledge of woodwork whatsoever. Similarly, Chio didn't know how to sew or cook, and many of the things she did know how to do proved too difficult with one hand. We gradually limped along, of course, making concessions along the way. I fumbled my way through basic repairs, and Chio learned how to work around her disability. But even then, we were still amateurs. My shoddy repairs would not last forever, and Chio would often run into tasks she couldn't complete, no matter how hard she tried. Cheer up, you know I didn't mean it. You're doing your best, just like everyone else here, and that's always all anyone can ask of you. Thank you, Chio. I appreciate that. My pleasure. Now, let's dig in, while the food is still fresh. Despite her complaints, Chio filled both bowls with a mixture of berries and fruit from the forest. She then placed the bowl on either side of the table and sat down, gesturing me for me to do the same. Fruit and berries yet again. I mean, don't complain. It's been months since I last ate meat, and that minor luxury was only because Chio found a wounded rabbit while she was gathering food. Forget laborers, what this village really needs is a hunter. While secretly pining for the taste of flesh, I unconsciously began to drool. Hey, I'm glad you were looking forward to this, but if you're that hungry, just dig in. Following Chio's line of sight, I hastily wiped my mouth and started eating. In reality, eating fruit and berries every day wasn't so bad. There was some variety, based on how far into the forest Chio went, and the taste was quite sweet. Furthermore, after working hard all morning, the watery taste was rather refreshing, and even after eating a bowl full, I didn't feel bloated. Nice work, Chio. These taste great. I was hoping you'd like them. I went deep into the forest for this batch, especially for you. For me? That's right. You've been working non-stop lately, so I thought you deserved a little reward. If you know how hard I've been working, tell those other slackers to get to work. Even children can pick berries, right? And if they took over gathering food, you'd be able to help me out more often. Oh, don't be like that. Children can't discern between edible berries and poisonous ones, and none of them know the layout of the forest like I do. Just leave the food gathering to me, and if you feel like you need a break, then take one. Having said her piece, Chio herself began to eat the platter she had prepared. I'm adding words sometimes randomly as well. I don't know what's happening with that. She joyfully consumed mouthful after mouthful, not at all tired of the familiar taste. But rather than join her, I continued to watch Chio, deriving a strange sense of pleasure from watching her elation. It's hard to believe that even now, after living together for a full year, I'm still learning from Chio. Rather than worrying about the division of labor or fretting over the food I eat, I should be content with what I have. After all, if a girl like Chio, whose entire world came crashing down without warning, is still able to smile like that after all she's been through, then maybe one day... Don't just watch me eat, you need to keep your energy up too, you know. I'm sorry that it's just the same as ever, but you still need to eat. Noticing that I wasn't eating, Chio softly reprimanded me in her usual kind-hearted manner. Don't apologize, Chio, you've done nothing wrong. I was just happy to see you enjoying your food so much. That's no reason not to not eat. You're the village leader, not to mention the only able-bodied man here. If you get sick, everyone will suffer. Okay, I get it. I'll eat too. You know, at times like this, you sound more like my wife than my daughter. What? It's nothing like that. I just don't want you to get sick, that's all. What's wrong with a daughter caring for her father's health? Calm down, Chiyo, it was just a joke. Chiyo took a deep breath and glared at me, somewhat embarrassed by her own reaction. Well, it was in poor taste. Still blushing, Chiyo looked straight down at her bowl and started to eat once more. Oh, Chiyo, don't you understand that if it's a father's duty to make his daughter feel awkward? I guess that's correct. Because even if our age difference makes us more like siblings than a parent and child, by this point you are, without a doubt, my family. Well, that's nice. 2 months later. Okay. And... Araki, put that down. You're just going to hurt yourself. That's a 2-person job, even for adults. Yes, sir, Koichiro-sama. Azai, help your brother to keep the frame in place. I want that door fixed before any more bugs make it inside. Understood, Koichiro-sama. Watching on with pride and anxiety alike, I instructed my 2 young pupils as they fixed the front door of their new home. Araki and Azai both made a lot of mistakes, but they listened to me intently and continued to improve every day. Like this, Koichiro-sama? Yes, just like that. Be mindful that you don't pierce the sheets. One little hole is all it takes for bugs to get in. Making do with what we had available, my pupils and I removed the bulk of the house's old front door, leaving only the frame. We then replaced the charred wood with sheets, making for a lightweight door only secure enough to keep out insects and other pests. I guess this will have to do, at least for the time being. I would have rationed the wood more carefully if I had known that we'd be taking in another family so soon, but if I had that kind of foresight, I wouldn't be here to begin with. All I can do now is schedule another lumber gathering trip into the forest. How does this look, Koichiro-sama? Ah, very good, Azai. That'll do for now. You two should go tell your parents the good news, then report back to me after lunch. Yes, sir. Araki and Azai bowed, then ran inside to inform their parents. And that would be my cue to check on my own family. By the time I returned, Chiyo was already waiting for me. She sat in front of me at the living room table, exercising great restraint as she fought her desire to start eating without me. There you are, Ko. I was beginning to think you were going to work through with lunch. Me? Miss lunch? Not a chance. I wouldn't risk invoking your anger again by not eating. Glad to hear it. I took my place on the other side of the table, directly opposite Chiyo. So, how are the repairs on the Kihei family going? Are the boys doing well? They're enthusiastic enough, but it'll be a while before they're ready to take over for me. Still, it is nice to have some extra hands. I know what you mean. Kana-chan has been a big help in collecting food and water from the forest. You two really are getting along, aren't you? Of course, I've waited a long time for a girl of my own age to come along. A little over 1 month ago, a new family wandered into our village. Like me, they fled from the Mirai Kingdom, fearing for their lives. Although they were difficult to accommodate at first, the family of 5 has since proven invaluable, providing much needed labor which Chiyo and I were previously doing ourselves. The mother of the family, another elderly woman, has been learning how to weave, and the father has been whittling down spare wood in order to make crude weaponry. More importantly, the 2 sons, Azai and Araki, 12 and 13 years old, have been helping me with any manual labor. Similarly, their older sister Kana quickly became friends with Chiyo and has been learning the layout of the forest, as well as which plants are edible and which are poisonous. Speaking of Kana, do you feel she knows the forest well by now? I was thinking of sending the boys in there to search for lumber, so it would help if she escorted them while you continued gathering food. Well, I guess, but does that mean the 2 of us won't be taking any more trips through the forest? You actually want to walk through the forest with me? When I first came here, the last thing you want was to be alone with me, especially in the forest. That was a long time ago. Your former allies killed my family, and you expected me to just go along with you? Of course I didn't want to go. Yeah, when you put it like that, I can't really blame you. But I'm happy to hear that your mistrust is in the past. It really is easier to navigate through the forest with your help. Of course it is. You should know by now how reliable I am. But that still doesn't answer my question. Right. Our walks through the forest. If you want to go with me that badly, I suppose we could put Kana on food gathering duty and have her brothers help her out. It's not that I want to go with you or anything. Oh, come on. Damn it, she said the line. The classic typical line. I just thought it would be nice. Chiyo hung her head and began to nibble on one of the berries in her bowl. This daughter of mine really can't be honest with herself. No, I mean, she's a teenager. She's 15 years old. Of course, she's not honest with herself. Even after all this time, she still feels the need to hide her feelings from me. Perhaps 1 year isn't enough time for two people to become family after all. I mean, it depends on the personality. Some people just hit it off right off the bat. And others take many, many years to get, comfortable with one another. Like, it depends on the people. It always depends on the people. The next day. Ooh. Alright, not a time skip. Not really. Whoa, this place is huge. Do you really come here every day, Nissan? Hey, look, there's a path carved through the bush. Azai, I'll race you to the big tree over there. You're on. Hey, hold on a minute. Don't go running off on your own. Ah, jeez, why don't you two ever listen to me? Shortly after entering the forest, Azai and Araki ran off. Their older sister Kana soon gave chase, but proved no match for her energetic siblings and could only trail behind. That didn't take long. You know how those two are. They may listen to you intently, but their sister is another matter altogether. I guess that's just how children are. Do you have any siblings, Ko? I know it's a bit late to be asking now, but you're always reluctant to talk about your past, so... It's alright, it's just my old work that I don't like to talk about. And no, I don't have any siblings. But I did have a couple of childhood friends, and they both had siblings, so I know what it's like. That must have been nice. As you already know, I was an only child, and there weren't any other kids around my age either. So even if Kana and her family had come along before our village was set alight, I'm sure we still would have wound up becoming friends. Though, I suppose it's for the best that they came afterwards, isn't it? Yes, you're right. Bit awkward like that, but yes. If the Kihei family had fled the Mirai Kingdom before I did, their deaths would now be hanging over my head, just like so many others. So what were your childhood friends like? Were they good people? Did you remain friends with them when you grew up? Oh, my friends. It's a bit complicated. Of course it is. Is that so? Let me guess. One of them was a girl and the other was a boy? You're right, but it's not what you think. Haru, a while after she found out that what Ito and I had been doing for a living, she took her own life. Well, this got fucking heavy immediately, of course it did. Yeah, correct. I see, yeah. I'm sorry, Ko, I didn't mean to. It's okay, you didn't know. It's fine, there's no way you could have known that. Yeah, but... Chio looked up at me with sadness in her eyes. I wasn't sure if she felt sympathy, pity, or a sense of solidarity given what had happened to her own family. But whichever feeling was behind that look, I couldn't stand seeing Chio look at me like that again. Forget about it, alright? Let's go find some lumber before the kids finish up doing their rounds. Okay. Chio and I walked through the forest in relative silence. In the distance we could hear rummaging, in addition to the occasional gleeful shout or cry of annoyance. Nah, you're never gonna catch me, Nichan. Oops, almost. You need to work on your leg strength, Nichan. Ah, hold still, you brats. Can't you ever just listen to your sister? I'm trying to teach you something important. Whatever, we're working men now. We'll leave the food gathering to the women. Right, we fix the house, so you get the food. That's how society works. You brats. Fine, run through some poison ivy for all I care. Good luck getting out of this forest on your own. Nichan? Did Nichan just abandon us? I tried to stifle my laughter as Chio and I listened in on the conversation being held between the Kihei siblings. Those three sure do get along well. You can say that again. They're like that every day, yet they always make up in the end. Indeed, they're just like how we used to be. I tried to help you or ask you a question, and you just brush me off. Well, excuse me for not trusting a complete stranger. Besides, you were far from perfect yourself. I told you time and time again not to follow me, and whenever you did, you wound up getting lost in the forest. Hey, I was just looking out for you. If you say so. At any rate, you seem to have learned your lesson, given that you asked me to be your guide. Why wouldn't I? Nobody in Hotsu village knows this forest like you do. Soul, elder spirit of the forest, where do you think one might find lumber suitable for repairing houses? Right this way, befuddled traveler. Okay, well that's neat. That's cute. Chio led the way deeper into the forest, taking me to an unfamiliar area. Although I didn't know the forest as well as Chia, I had spent enough time there to know the area close to town. So if I didn't know where I was, it was a safe bet that we were in pretty deep. I should really make an axe one of these days. Going this far into the forest just to search for fallen trees isn't practical, nor is carrying back wood over such a distance. The village is in decent shape now, and I have Azai and Akaraki to help me, so I should have time to fashion a few more tools. With ample wood lying around from the toils of the former villages, not to mention the remains of several houses, securing lumber was never a high priority. My early days in Hotsu were spent utilizing the resources my predecessors had left behind, and using makeshift tools in place of anything more useful, like a hammer or an axe. But with the growing village, ongoing repairs, and the occasional newcomer, relying on existing resources was no longer an option. Okay, this ought to do it. What do you think? Did I come through or what? Chio stopped in front of a fallen tree, which had been pierced by a large rock as it landed. It would still require brute strength to tear off anything worthwhile, and I'd need an axe to take away most of it, but it was quite a find nonetheless. You sure did, as expected of my wonderful daughter. You're never going to give me this whole father-daughter thing a rest, are you? Like I told you from the beginning, we're far too close in age to be parent and child. Nobody in the village believes it anyway. Why do you even bother saying it? Because it just feels right. Chio stared at me with a serious expression on her face, as though tired of the farce. I know it's not believable, that isn't the point. Chio, what do you suppose the other villagers would think if we weren't parent and child? Exactly what they think of us now, right? Are you sure about that? A young man and woman, not related by blood, living together, calling one another by their first names without honorifics? Do I really need to spell it out for you? I still don't get it. You don't use honorifics with anyone, do you? And so what if we live together and aren't related by blood? That doesn't mean... she's about to understand. Wait a minute, you don't mean... she understood. Good. Chio's face was suddenly dyed bright red. Only 1 year away from being of age, Chio could easily pass for a young bride, especially if her husband was a renowned samurai. But after being on our own for so long, and spending every day simply trying to survive, such frivolous thoughts never even entered Chio's mind. You must be joking. Who would marry a worthless samurai like you? Come now, there's no need to get defensive. Who's being defensive? I'm just setting the facts straight. Calm down, Chio. I have no intention of getting married again. Anyway, I hope that answers your question. I guess. Though it still doesn't explain why we're father and daughter, and not siblings. Well, a sense of responsibility, I guess. She's got me there. To be honest, when I first saw Chio in that storeroom, I could only think of her as a little girl. A child who needed protecting, far too young and weak to be my sister. But I was wrong, and now it's too late to change our story. That's because we look so different, you know? When people point out our dissimilar appearances, I can say you take after your mother. Is that right? Well, I guess it doesn't matter. It's too late to change our story now anyway. Phew. Now, let's get moving. You better get the boys to help you with the lumber, and I'll go look for Kana-chan. Whatever you say, Chio. 3 days later. Even more forward-thinking stuff. I think I've got it. Careful with that, you don't want to lose a finger. Relax, I'm fine, it's just like Papa showed us. After devoting a few days to stockpiling lumber, Azai, Araki and I undertook a different task than usual. The village no longer required any urgent repairs, and we had gathered enough lumber to accommodate one more family, should they appear. So, with the knowledge their father bestowed upon us, our increasing awareness of the forest adjacent to Hotsu village, and more lumber than we needed, done! My trap is complete. We began to make crude wooden traps. Nice meat! Well done, Azai. Now, place the bait in the trap and move on to the next one. Yes, sir, Koichiro-sama. While the girls had been doing well in their role of providing berries and fruit for the village, the lack of variety was disheartening. Only once had I tasted flesh since coming to Hotsu, and every day I craved the taste of cooked meat more and more. So, with the wannabe weaponsmith drearily biding his time, and his 2 sons both eager to eat meat again, I brought the 3 together for a new venture. Using string and sharpened wooden spikes, we fashioned basic traps triggered by pressure. By placing a few berries and leaves in the center of the trap, we would lure unsuspecting rabbits onto the string, at which point a wooden spike would be pulled forward and stab the rabbit from above. Koichiro-san, I think I made mine a little too big. That's an understatement. That trap is far too big for catching rabbits. But you might as well set it up anyway. Who knows, you might even catch a bear. A bear? Are there really bears near Koichiro-sama? Of course not. There's nothing that dangerous around here. Oh, Gio, I didn't expect to see you here. Done already? Not yet. I just thought I'd see how you boys were doing. But from the look of it, you three still have a lot of work to do. How harsh. We only just started, you know. We'd be further along if Araki followed Papa's instructions. Hey, it's not my fault he can't explain anything properly. His explanation was fine. It's your brain that needs fixing. Come here. Like usual, Azai and Araki began brawling without hesitation. Though typically playful, the two often fought, and all it took was one sly comment from either brother before their fists began flying. Maybe I should teach these two how to wield a sword. It might do them some good to learn discipline and to vent their frustration productively. That didn't take much. Boys really are violent thugs, aren't they? If you want someone to agree with you, Chio, you should really be saying that to Kana. Besides, there's no harm in a little roughhousing, even when they're this close to the traps they just made. Boys, stop that this instant. It's a very good point. Azai and Araki both stopped at my command. They slowly walked back over, paying little attention to the two traps they had just set. Sorry, Koichiro-sama. Yeah, we're sorry. Look, if you two want to play, that's fine, but do it away from the traps you just set. Whoa, you're right. Understood, Koichiro-sama. I'm going back to gathering food. You three have fun. Without another word, Chio walked straight past us, deeper into the forest. Something tells me I'll be hearing more about that during lunch. Indeed. Oh well, Chio's message was conveyed, and that's what matters. Alright, you two, back to work. And make sure to keep track of every trap you set. Chio, your sister, and I all need to know exactly what to look out for. Got it? Understood. Yes, sir, Koichiro-sama. I'm liking this a lot. 4 days later. I'm liking this one so far. It's neat, it's nice. In the days following our first attempt at making traps, my pupils and I were quick to reap the reward for our efforts. On the first night we managed to capture 6 rabbits and 1 fox, all of which we skinned and consumed that very night. Although we didn't get to eat much, considering how many villages the meat was shared between, the familiar taste was almost enough to bring me to tears. In light of our success, that day we set up the same traps once again and crafted several more. With the taste of meat still fresh in our minds, Azai, Araki and I all did our part, setting up literally dozens of traps, limited only by the amount of string at our disposal. Nonetheless, our efforts were rewarded once again. We captured more rabbits than last time, enough to divide up evenly between every member of our small village. This pattern repeated once more, and if all goes well, it will repeat yet again today. I mean, there's only so many rabbits in the forest though, that will fall for this stuff. Eventually you'll run out of rabbits. Okay, 1 bowl of nutritious goodies as requested. While I dreamed of another day's harvest, Chio placed my breakfast on the table. On either side I found a bowl of fruit and berries, the same as ever. Why is that rabbit food on the table? We should still have some meat left over from last night, shouldn't we? Ko, you know you can't eat meat every meal of the day, and you can't skip meals either. If you don't want your breakfast, I'm not cooking what you catch today. Hey now, let's not go crazy here. I'm eating, alright? Just watch me. Without hesitation, I crammed my mouth full of miscellaneous fruits and berries. Chio didn't seem terribly impressed, but she didn't lash out either, so I presumed that I was in the clear. Fine, as long as you eat what I prepare for you. Oh, but speaking of meat, have you thought about doing some fishing? I followed the river a bit further upstream yesterday, and it looks like it leads to an underground spring. There were koi fish swimming around. Can you believe that? I always thought it was strange for trees to flourish in the middle of nowhere like this, but if that spring leads to the ocean, then maybe. Koichiro-sama, are you there? Mid-sentence, Chio's attention turned to the door, where she found her new friend shouting as loud as she could. Kana-chan? I'm here. What's wrong? Koichiro-sama, you're a samurai, right? Please, bring your sword and follow me. Uh-oh. Oh dear. Without asking any questions, I grabbed my katana, essentially unused since I came to Hotsu, and followed Kana. She led me a short distance into the forest, near where her brothers and I first began laying traps. Kana looked around anxiously, on guard as she turned her head back and forth, searching for the danger she hadn't yet warned me about. Even without Kana saying anything, I can guess why I'm here. The large trap Araki made is gone, and there's a lot of blood where it once sat. Far more blood than I'd expect from a rabbit or a fox. Going by the bloody footprints, my guess is that someone stepped in the trap. The only question is, was it one of the boys, or... Ah, there he is! A short walk away from where the trap had been set, a wounded samurai sat on the ground, nursing his leg. I could clearly see a large puncture wound where the trap had pierced him, and going by the dried blood surrounding the wound, I summarized that he had walked into the trap during the night. Well, well, what have we here? I removed my katana from its sheath and placed the blade against the fallen samurai's throat. Surprisingly, he didn't put up any resistance or draw his own weapon. Instead, the seated man stared at me in shock, as though he had seen a ghost. Captain Nabatame? Sir, is that really you? Although I didn't recognize the man before me, he seemed to know exactly who I was. Unfortunately, the dominant expression on his face was surprise, not fear or joy, so I couldn't be certain if he was once an ally or an enemy. I may not be the captain of the Kodokushi anymore, but I am indeed Koichiro Nabatame. State your name and your business. Yes, sir, my apologies. My name is Reizei Sadayori, and I'm here on official business from the Mirai Kingdom. Nabatame-san, we received a report from a foreign trader that there was an undocumented village here, next to a forest full of life. I was sent to verify the claims and... Slow down. Who do you mean by we, exactly? Who sent you? Well, it was indirect, but I suppose you could say it was the Kodokushi, sir. The Kodokushi. They must have pawned off the job when they realized it was a village they already burned down last year. No point scouting a village they already decimated, after all. Sir, I don't mean to speak out of turn, but my leg... Alright, I understand. I sheathed my sword and approached Reizei. I will help you, but you have to do something for me too. Yes, of course, sir. It would be an honor. I'm glad you feel that way. Never speak of this place again. First, you're going to hand me your katana and wakizashi. I can't have you wandering around here while you're carrying weapons. Second, you're going to report to the Kodokushi that you found a burned down, uninhabited village next to the forest, and that the forest itself contains nothing of value. Do you understand? Yes, sir. I understand. Kana and I walked away from the samurai, taking his weapons with us. Once we were out of earshot, Kana looked back at Reizei, then faced me with a complicated expression on her face. What is it, Kana? No, it's nothing important. I just... Kana tightly hugged the two sheathed blades. Are we really going to help him? Why wouldn't we? You heard him. That man is a scout. He isn't here to harm us. I know that, but... Ah, there you two are. While Kana fumbled to find the right words, Chiyo finally caught up to us. Geez, Kana-chan, you really surprised me there. I knew Ko was fast, but I never expected that kind of agility from you. I guess it's because I'm always chasing after my little brothers. Kana forced herself to laugh for Chiyo's benefit, but her worry overshadowed any false joy. Kana-chan, what's going on? Why did you need Ko? And Chiyo's gaze drifted down to the two sheathed blades cradled in Kana's arms. I'll explain later. Kana, get a bucket and fill it with water. Chiyo, grab enough cloth to bind the person's leg many times over. Make it quick, and meet me back here when you're done. Without argument, Kana and Chiyo did what I asked of them. They then handed me over the supplies I needed and hung back as I approached Reizei once more. I used the water to clean his leg, washing out splinters from the puncture wound as I removed any obstructions I found. I then bound his leg with the cloth Chiyo gave me in order to stop the bleeding, and finally sent Reizei off after reminding him of our deal. Is it really alright to just let him go like that? Kana-chan told me about your deal, but even so, how do you know he will honor it? With Reizei no longer in sight, Kana picked up the bucket and remaining cloth, then headed back to the village. Chiyo, however, was not convinced by what she had heard and seen, and showed no sign of returning just yet. The simple answer is, I don't. Reizei might tell the Kodokushi the truth the second he returns, sparking a manhunt akin to my escape from last year. If you know that, then how could you let him go? You're supposed to be this village's leader. How could you knowingly endanger everyone like that? Chiyo shouted at me angrily, obviously not approving of my actions. And I couldn't blame her. To Chiyo, a young girl cut off from greater society, my actions may indeed have seemed like those of a traitor. Even so, my actions were not without a reason. Chiyo, what do you think would happen if I killed Reize? What do I think? Yes, if I killed that scout, what difference do you think it would have made? Isn't it obvious? That samurai wouldn't be able to report that he found you, or our village. We'd be safe. I shook my head at Chiyo's naive conclusion. Chiyo, when a scout goes missing, they aren't simply forgotten. If you sent Kana into the forest and she never came back, where is the first place you would look for her? In the forest? Exactly. That isn't to say that you are wrong, Chiyo. Reize may indeed tell the Kodokushi where I am. But this way, there's still a chance that he'll honor our deal, and that's far better than guaranteed destruction at the hands of his comrades. I see. So even if the odds aren't in our favor, at least this way, there's still a glimmer of hope. Correct. But there's more to it than that. I know it may not seem like much, considering what's on the line, but even so. Life is precious, Chiyo, and preserving life is something you should never feel bad about. Well, that's a nice lesson. That's good. 1 week later. In the week that followed Reize's appearance, Hotsu village underwent many changes. First and foremost, all repairs were put on hold, as were any plans to create new rabbit traps. All new traps were closer in size to Araki's trap, the one that nailed Reize, and we branched out into other traps not suitable for hunting small animals. We experimented with pitfalls, used string as tripwire near beds of rock, and even trimmed back some of the bushes and trees to make several areas of the forest look almost identical. After that, I began coordinating evacuation exercises, in which Kana would lead the other villagers to the underground spring that Chiyo found. The children would help the elderly to escape quickly, and we soon marked out an appropriate route to the spring. While the villagers were fleeing, Chiyo and I would climb up our lumber stockpile onto the roof of a house near the edge of town. From there, we could see anyone approaching from many miles away, allowing us to take the best course of action so as not to be seen. Although we kept watch every day, I had already informed Chiyo and the others of how long it would take before we needed to keep our eyes peeled. By horse, we were only a day or two away from Mirai. By foot, a direct route would easily take 1 week at the bare minimum. So, given that Reize had left on foot and the Kodokushi would travel by horse, we still had another few days before the worst case scenario could play out. Even if Reize immediately informed the Kodokushi and they mobilized that very instant, we could still afford to skip watchman duty for the time being. Still nothing. I know I should feel relieved by that lack of action, but no matter how much time we spend up here, I can't help but feel anxious. Chiyo held herself with her good arm, making no attempt to hide her feelings. That is nothing to be ashamed of. Anxiety keeps you alert. For someone who is potentially being hunted, it could mean the difference between life and death. Yeah, I guess you're right. Was it like this for you, when you were working for them? I know you don't like to talk about it, but right now I know, at this moment I don't have the freedom to keep secret any information pertaining to the Kodokushi. Truthfully, I can't say I ever felt that kind of anxiety. Rather, I was excited by the thought that a strong opponent might seek me out. The only part of my job that made me feel like you do now was preparing for situations just like this. As much as I tried to mask my own feelings, Hotsu village's current situation was one I was already familiar with. Belonging to the Kodokushi, I was among those who sought to destroy villages like this, storming in and killing without hesitation. So although my situation had been reversed, I knew all too well how the assault would take place, and experience was not needed to predict the outcome. Wrecking villages, slaying innocent people, torching corpses. Whenever we came across a village like this, I feared the worst, praying that my assignment wouldn't end in such a manner. But no matter how much I wished for a peaceful resolution, my fears always proved to be justified. Even if we didn't slaughter the entire village, our presence still ruined the lives of those we found. We took in slaves, stole horses, depleted the village's food supplies. As soon as we stepped outside of Mirai, we became villains. Chiyo watched me silently as I told her about my past. Although we had been together for well over a year, I had never told Chiyo about the things I had done, or explained how I was as bad as the people hunting me. Unfortunately, as the Kodokushi threatened to make a second appearance at Hotsu village, I had little choice. Even if Chiyo hates me for the things I've done, our survival is my top priority. Forgetting my past is a luxury I cannot afford anymore. What's important is that I convey my knowledge of how they operate. As a former captain of the Kodokushi, I know their tactics well. If anyone has a chance of fending them off, it's me. We would usually strike at our whim, But if we had reason to believe that the village contained combatants, our strategy differed. First, we would send a scout, unarmed, into the village. They would pretend to be a traveler or merchant and gather information for us. Next, we used that information to enter the village discreetly, avoiding any watched areas of the village, usually at daybreak. Finally, we'd start by setting alight the houses of the strongest members of the village, then proceed to slaughter everyone indiscriminately. Even as I finally finished, Chiyo did not say a word. I mean, yeah, what do you say to that? It's pretty messed up. She looked at me with a worried expression on her face, as though she torn between anxiety and fear. Chiyo did not approach me either, nor did she show any sign of speaking her thoughts. I should have known this would happen. It's one thing to call yourself a samurai, but it's another to listen to a tale of government-sanctioned evil. I can only imagine what Chiyo must think of me now. As the man responsible for her parents' deaths, for destroying her life, my only redeeming feature was that I was the lesser of two evils. Now that Chiyo knows the truth, I see. So that's why you don't like to talk about your old job. Chiyo finally opened her mouth, barely managing to squeeze out those two sentences. But even as she spoke, her expression did not change. Whatever chord I had struck with Chiyo, she did not know how to react. And for my part, I wasn't sure where to go from there. Yes, that was my old life. Please, whatever you think of me right now, keep it to yourself until this time of desperation has passed. If we are to be attacked... Yeah, I understand. I'll tell the others about the Kodokushi's tactics, but the rest, I'll leave out. Without another word, Chiyo climbed down from the roof, jumping onto the same pile of lumber we used to climb up. She hung her head as she walked, not once looking back at me or showing the slightest glimpse of her usual self. As I feared, the truth completely shattered the image she had of me, which I worked long and hard to cultivate. A full year of bonding gone, just like that. Well, you don't know that, so certain right now. Once the Kodokushi have come and gone, assuming they do come, this life Chiyo and I have been leading together may finally be over. Chiyo will oust me, and I will be forced to move on, leaving this village in the hands of those left behind. That might not be so bad. Azai and Araki can take over most of my duties, and there are no dangers in this village which can call for a samurai's strength. I'll be sad to go, of course, but from the beginning I only stayed here in order to look after Chiyo. Now that she has Kana and the others, Chiyo may be better off without me. Oh, it's a little sad, but 3 days later. In the wake of my confession to Chiyo, further changes took place in Hotsu village. Starting with Chiyo, the villagers all began to act more depressed than I had anticipated, including the ever-energetic Azai and Araki. In turn, this lethargy slowed productivity down to a halt. Our meals were all smaller, no new traps were made, and torn clothing went without repair. We all simply wandered around the village aimlessly, like starving chickens waiting to be beheaded. Even as the villagers gave in to despair, I remained vigilant, keeping watch at all hours of the day. I headed out of the village in the direction of Mirai, practicing my swordsmanship as I waited for an enemy that may never come. Looking over the horizon, I almost wished that the Kodokushi would show up so we could finally end our struggle. But as I swung my blade at thin air, reliving my days as Captain Nabatame, the only thing that came to me was reminiscence. Here. Before I could leave the house to start my training for the day, Chiyo placed a wooden bowl full of fruit in front of me. Despite our damaged relationship, Chiyo still insisted that I eat whatever she prepared, and she refused to let me go hungry. Thank you, Chiyo. I appreciate it. Yeah. No sooner had she offered me breakfast than Chiyo retreated into the next room. Although she resolved to continue her role as a forager, Chiyo was otherwise just as depressed as everyone else, if not more so. She spoke to me very little, ate almost nothing herself, and had barely slept at all. Chiyo was in a downward spiral, and the only thing I could do was wait for fate to take its course. Upon arriving at the edge of the village, facing Mirai, I had expected to indulge in solitude. I had been training alone until this point, and nobody dared to go near me when I unsheathed my sword. On this day, however, that pattern was broken. Good morning, Kochiro-sama. Hello, Araki. Kochiro-sama, there you are. Waiting patiently near my usual training spot were Azai and Araki, both of whom wore wearing serious expressions. I hadn't expected either boy to be awake so early. Since they arrived, both boys had consistently woken up later than even the elderly villagers. Either my good habits were finally rubbing off, or something was wrong. Good morning, boys. You're up early. What brings you out here? Araki looked down at the ground and swayed from side to side, unwilling or unable to convey the reason behind his appearance. Koichiro-sama, Asa and I... Koichiro-sama, please train us. Train you? In contrast to his brother's reservation, Asa immediately blurted out their mutual desire. Please, Koichiro-sama. Right, please train us. Asa and Araki both bowed their heads. You two want me to train you? Yes, please teach us how to use a sword. You still have those 2 blades you took from that other samurai, right? Please, let us wield them. Yeah, we want to help protect the village. Please, help us to protect our family. Faced with the honest, selfless pleas of 2 young boys, I sighed in exasperation and shook my head. Boys, I'm glad that you want to help, but the Kodokushi could be here any day now. Those men have trained for years, some even decades. Learning basic sword skills won't help you. But Koichiro-san, no buts. If you try to fight those men, you're going to get yourselves killed. Do you understand that? They will not take pity on you because you're children. They will slaughter you with ease and without hesitation. I understand that you want to protect your family, but you can't do that if you're dead. If you truly wish to protect your family, then go with them. Stay by their sides and see to it that they escape with their lives. Understood, Koichiro-sama. Asa and Araki slowly walked away, fighting back tears as they did. Once they had put a few meters between us, the 2 boys started to run straight towards their house. Neither one of them turned back to face me, nor did they say another word as they ran. My tone may have been a little harsh, but those boys needed to hear it. Childish dreams of heroism die the minute you enter battle. If those 2 fight, they will without a doubt be killed. So if making those boys resent me is what it takes to keep them alive, it's a price I'm willing to pay. Unfortunately, that seems to be a common pattern recently. Chiyo hasn't looked at me the same since I told her about my old job, and the friendliness I once received in the other villages is now gone. Asa and Araki were most likely the only 2 left on my side. And now... yeah, it's rough. I wandered past the edge of the village, into the barren lands before me. Unsheathing my blade, I exhaled deeply, readying myself for another day of training in solitude. With my blade held firmly in my right hand, I wandered away from the village, as far as I could go without losing sight of my new home. A week or so of training may not make up for a year of peasant life, but it does remind me of the man I once was. Before I became a killer, I was a devoted swordsman. I trained every day and took every opportunity to improve myself. I fought strong opponents, many of whom were twice my age and far more experienced. Yet I never lost. My endless training and natural talent propelled me forward, making it possible for me to become the best of the best. For all of those who praised and revered my skill, just as many people resented me. Every time I defeated a seasoned swordsman while sparring, I would gain another fan, and a dozen enemies. Ordinary people feared me, and other samurai treated me with hostility, all because I surpassed them so easily. I wouldn't call that easy. Training for a long time to be better, like, passion and dedication. It means that their passion was not as great as yours. And so they didn't put in 100% of their effort into training and becoming better. Or if they did, then, well, you just have more to give, it seems. So, don't call it easy. Don't call skills that you've acquired over the course of like years something that's easy. It's not. It never is. I dared to rise up higher than they could ever reach, and for that I was hated. Jealousy, yeah. Through the tough times, only 2 people stayed by my side, my childhood friends Haru and Ito. Like the 2 sides of my conscience, Haru and Ito always spurred me on in conflicting ways, both with my best interest at heart. My dear Haru always wanted me to give up on joining the Kodokushi. She practically begged me to give up on swordsmanship and to live a normal life. Ito, on the other hand, considered us to be rivals. He foresaw the 2 of us joining the Kodokushi together, rising the ranks and forever competing as we fought side by side. But now, that life is over, and I failed to make either one of their dreams come true. I could not give Haru the happy life she so deserved, nor will I ever again fight by Ito's side. All I have left now is this village, and the people within it. My daughter, Chiyo, my 2 pupils, Araki and Azai, their sister, Chiyo's good friend Kana, the kind-hearted families who fled from Mirai. Before I realized it, I was swinging my sword angrily, cutting away at the air before me while deep in thought. I thrust my blade forward, then turned around and slashed at the invisible enemy behind me. As though dancing, I swiftly moved in a chaotic yet rhythmic pattern, playing out the scene of carnage from my past. I disemboweled and beheaded soldier after soldier, painting the walls red with their blood. Whether they love me or hate me, I'll protect every person in this village. I am the village leader, and I will see this fight through to the bitter end. The Kodokushi will come, if not because of that scout, then for the sake of exploration or to expand the kingdom. And when they do, I'll be ready. Yeah. Be ready for them. After many hours of tireless training, I returned home to eat lunch with Chiyo. I had worked up both a sweat and an appetite, thanks to the hot rays of the sun beaming down on me, so a bowl full of juicy fruit sounded more tantalizing than ever. Upon walking through the door, however, I immediately realized that my exertion wouldn't be rewarded so easily. About time you got back, Ko. You reek of sweat. Waiting with a stern look on her face, Chiyo addressed me the moment I walked inside. Yes, it is rather hot out there. It's easy enough to work up a sweat even without moving, let alone while swinging a blade around. Is that right? Chiyo stared at me dubiously, as though my reply didn't matter in the slightest. Did something happen, Chiyo? Or is this still about what I told you the other day? Don't jump to conclusions. Not everything is about you, Ko. Maybe you should think less about yourself and more about those around you. With obvious hostility in her voice, Chiyo failed to answer my question. Unfortunately, with no idea why she was saying it, I could only act like my usual self. Others around me. Are you talking about yourself? I've been giving you space because I thought that was what you wanted. If not, all you had to do was... I'm talking about Kana's little brothers. I don't know what you said to them, but those boys have been depressed and crying all morning. Now Kana's angry at me because of something you said. Just what did you say to those boys exactly? What did you do to screw up their lives? The second I tried to make a joke, Chiyo lashed out, completely unwilling to play along. I mean, can't blame her for that. I could see fury in her eyes, unlike anything I'd seen since we first met, back when her parents' corpses were still fresh and we were mere strangers. Hey now, calm down. There's no need to get upset. The boys wanted me to show them how to use a sword, and I refused, that's all. Perhaps I could have been nicer about it, but I still feel that my decision was warranted. Warranted or not, you just made the entire Kihei family hate you. You need to apologize to those boys right now. You want me to apologize? I told those boys not to throw their lives away. How is that something to apologize for? I don't care who's in the wrong, just apologize to them. You're the adult here, so act like one. Tell those boys that you're sorry, so we can all be friends again. Faced with Chiyo's accusations and demands, I could feel my calm disposition slipping away. The stress of preparing Hotsu village for an imminent bloodbath was weighing on me, not to mention the cold treatment I'd been receiving from the villagers. Ever since Reise showed up, life in the village had become unbearable. Friends, don't make me laugh. Not one person in this village considers me a friend. You all call out Koichiro-san, Koichiro-san when you need something, yet the second real conflict arrives, nobody wants anything to do with me. But that's fine by me. I don't need to be loved or even liked. I will continue to do what I think is right. Are you even listening to yourself? Just how self-centered can you be? This isn't about you. It's about doing what's best for everyone. We should be preparing for the worst right now. Instead, everyone's too busy getting bad about nothing. So swallow your pride, apologize, and do your duty as the village leader. That's exactly what I was doing. What kind of village leader would tell children to join the front lines or give them weapons? I was protecting you all, just as I always have. At some point you need to realize that sheltering people isn't the same as protecting them. You should be telling those boys what they can do to help, not just shooting them down. I sighed angrily at Chiyo's response, meaning she is correct. This is hopeless. All we're doing is going around in circles. Chiyo has no idea what was said. She's just unconditionally taking her friend's side. I mean, you can't really blame her, but even then. Is this what it's like to be a father, or is it merely the misfortune of being a leader? I mean, it's both. Chiyo, please stop acting like you know everything. I did tell those boys how they could help. I told them to stay with their family and to escape together. Tell me, how is that wrong? That's not wrong, but nothing. I have not erred here, and I will not stand beside children and watch them get slaughtered. Chiyo, I appreciate that you want everyone to get along, but it's not always that simple. Sometimes people simply cannot see eye to eye, no matter what. I turned those boys down knowing that they might hate me for doing so, but if that's what it takes to keep them alive, then I regret nothing. I still can't agree with you deciding everything for them. Even if they lose their lives doing so, those boys have a right to decide if they want to fight or not. Now you're just trying to best me. You don't believe a word you just said, do you? I do so. No, you don't. You realize that you were in the wrong, and now you're trying to cover up your mistake. You should realize by now that father knows best. You're wrong, it's not like that. I was just sticking up for those boys, that's all. It's okay, Chio, I accept your apology. Okay. Though if you really want to apologize, know that the quickest way to a man's heart is through his stomach. I laughed at Chio's attempt to maintain her dignity, then offered her a way out. I didn't want to argue any more than she did, and if giving Chio another task would help keep her distracted a while, then both sides would benefit. So that's what you were after. Fine. If preparing your lunch is what it takes to put this conversation behind us, then I'm ready whenever you are. Let's go for a little trip into the forest, shall we? No, that's more. Wait a second. Us? I'll grab the food. You need a bath. I wasn't kidding about you reeking of sweat, Co. I suppose I have been training since daybreak. Even if I can't smell myself, I'm definitely covered in sweat. Okay, a quick bath, lunch, and then back to training. Today might not be a total waste after all. Oh, yeah, something. At the very least. By the way, I'm loving this whole thing. Like, it's very engrossing. When the more dramatic stuff starts happening, I might just read the whole thing, because it's very engaging. I do like this story so far. I might not ramble at all at some point. After Chio grabbed a basket to fill it with food, the two of us entered the forest. Despite knowing the path, I followed Chio as she led the way, trailing close behind while silently smiling to myself. In truth, there was no reason for me to be smiling. I was quickly becoming alienated, arguing with my daughter, and aware of an imminent threat on the village. Nonetheless, when I watched Chio, once again joyful and full of life, I couldn't help but smile. While I dislike arguing with Chio, in this case our heated exchange seems to have done some good. Yesterday Chio would barely speak to me. Now we're strolling through the forest together. Apparently a bit of communication was just what we needed. Chio and I avoided parts of the forest in which the boys and I had laid traps. We had set traps further into the forest than when we were hunting, and made them large enough to snare an adult male. With that in mind, Chio and I remained vigilant, careful not to get skewered by our own protection. Okay, we're almost at the river. You remember the way from there, don't you? I do indeed. Thank you for guiding me this far. My pleasure. I'll be close by, so just call out when you're done. Will do. Don't stick too close by, though. I'm actually quite shy, you know. Of course, I'll make sure to... Wait, what was that? Don't be ashamed. I know you peeped on me while I was bathing before. But you're too old to bathe with Baba, so please refrain from doing so. Are you insane? I've never tried to peep on you. If anything, you were the one trying to peep on me. That's not how I remember it. Obviously, your memory is deteriorating in your old age, you perverted geezer. Alright. Ouch, who are you calling an old geezer? I'm only 24, you know. Then act your age. Shut your mouth and wash the sweat from your body. Call for me when you're done, and you better be fully clothed. Sure. Tired of our banter, Chio walked in the opposite direction of the river. She didn't stop, nor did she cast another glance my way. I was on my own once more, and until I had finished bathing, Chio would not grace my sight. Fair enough. A little lightheartedness. I do like that as well. Taking the time to thoroughly clean my body, I wound up bathing for far longer than planned. Occupied with the drama invading Hotsu village, I hadn't been bathing as often as I should, so I was overdue for a proper cleaning. More so than that though. However, I simply wanted to take a chance to think everything through, free of any distractions. If there's one thing that hasn't changed between my life in the city and my life in Hotsu village, it's that a bath is the best place to forget your worries. Alone, floating in the water, away from any of the strife that plagues you amid your daily life. Whether you're in a bathtub or drifting down a river, the feeling of freedom does not change. However, now that I've had the time to clear my head, I realize that there is work to be done. First, as Chio insisted, I must speak to the Kihei boys. Whether I was right or wrong, I must make amends, lest they disobey my orders and get themselves killed. Next, I will speak to the villagers, one by one, and take the time to personally explain our predicament, who the Kadokoshi are, and what to expect. Finally, I will organize rotating surveillance teams, such that we will see the enemy coming, no matter when or from what direction. Chio-chan, I'm out of the bath now. Feeling a great weight had been lifted from my shoulders, I gleefully called out to Chio, who was foraging close by. Ko, what's wrong? Did you slip and hit your head? Oh, don't be like that. I was just calling out to my precious daughter. With honorifics and an infantile tone? Well, you always used to complain when I just called you Chio, and my voices. Don't explain, just act like your usual creepy self. Ouch again. First I was a perverted geezer, now I'm a creep. I'm getting quite the bad reputation here. Alright, creepy Ko it is. So, scrounge up something interesting for lunch? Interesting might not be the word for it, but you'll definitely be able to eat your fill. I've got persimmons, apples, pears, you name it. Prompted by Chio's claim, I looked down into the basket at her feet. That's quite the haul. You really worked hard for Papa's sake. Who said this was for your sake? I'm not going to start starving myself. Besides, I wanted to make sure we had enough for dinner too, so it's not like I gathered more than usual. Chio hurriedly denied my accusation. Her face flushed the entire time. No matter how long we spent together, Chio would never admit to doing something for my sake. And thanks to my teasing whenever she did, that was unlikely to ever change. Okay, I understand. Let's head back to the village and eat lunch together. I'm famished. Me too, I haven't been foraging as much these past few days, so I could really use a sizable meal. And maybe after we eat, you can apologize? Very subtle, Chio. But don't worry, while I won't take back what I said, I will apologize for the manner in which I spoke. I want to get along with everyone just as much as you do. I knew you'd come around. Make sure to tell me when you go to apologize. I want to see Ko on his hands and knees begging for forgiveness. I'm not that sorry. As Chio and I encroached upon Hotsu village, the forest's usual ambience suddenly died off. Although nothing appeared to be amiss, I could feel something strange in the air, a disturbance I couldn't quite put my finger on. Something about the forest had changed, if not physically, then in a more discreet manner. Oh dear, the gut instinct is telling you. Oh dear. I looked over at Chio, who walked along as happily as ever. If she noticed something too, she wasn't letting on. Chio simply continued to stroll through the forest without a care in the world. But Chio's behavior was not enough to convince me that I was wrong, nor was I about to pin my hopes on her ability to sense danger. We're nearing the village now. If there is danger afoot, it mightn't necessarily be in the forest. But the only danger that comes to mind is that I've been preparing for an assault by the Kodokoshi. I couldn't see any sign of them in the distance as I looked towards Mirai earlier, and I haven't been in the forest long enough for such a distance to be covered. Could the threat be internal? None of the villages were violent or unpredictable. The likelihood of one of them posing a threat or lashing out was minimal. Nonetheless, there were 4 blades in my home, not to mention the tools I used on a daily basis. If someone were to snap under pressure, violence may be imminent. Ko, are you feeling alright? You've been quiet for a while now. I looked down at Chio, uncertain how best to answer her question. Honestly, I'm not sure. Chio, does something feel off to you? Off? What do you mean? I don't know. I suppose it's a sense of impending danger. Samurai are trained to sleep with one eye open, figuratively speaking. We have a keen sense for when something is awry. Are you sure you aren't just being paranoid? There's no danger around here, we all. Chio stopped mid-sentence and began to sniff the air. I followed suit, paying more attention to the scent than I had before. And the moment I did, a horribly familiar scene played out before me. That was quick. Hotsu village, in flames, once more. The moment Chio spied the village, she dropped the basket in her hand and stared blankly at the flames. She froze, completely devastated as she watched history repeat itself. Chio, go back to the forest. Do not come out until I say so. I took charge immediately, but Chio remained despondent. The sight of indomitable flames taking away her home and her friends was too much for her to bear. Chio, back in the forest, now! What? As I shouted at her, Chio finally snapped out of her daze. Her hands shook, and she looked from side to side, trying to find at least one villager. However, the only bodies we could see were corpses, torn to shreds without any hope of survival. This can't be happening. Not again. I can't. Chio, listen to me. I can't watch this happen again. At long last, Chio ran off. However, rather than return to the forest, Chio headed straight into the village, towards the Kihei home. Damn Chio, this is not the time. Without wasting a second, I quickly followed after Chio. Usually I would outrun her with ease, but after training all morning, I no longer possessed such speed. All I could do was run, praying that I'd find her before the Kodokushi. Those bastards. The second I leave the village, they strike. They must have been watching me, waiting for the perfect time to invade. And at the time I was gone, every one of the villages was... As I approached the Kihei home, I grimaced at the sight of two painfully familiar corpses. Azai and Araki, each wielding one of my blades. The moment the Kodokushi struck, those two headed straight for my home. The home of Koichiro-san, the village leader, the person whose job it was to protect them. And when they couldn't find me, they took the matter into their own hands. Filled with both sadness and anger, I took my katana and wakizashi from the two boys. I bit my lip so hard I could feel the blood run down my face, meanwhile clenching each blade tighter than ever before. This kind of senseless slaughter is exactly why I left the Kodokushi in the first place. I left to get away from the bloodshed, to escape the role of a remorseless killer. But now that it's come to this, Koichiro, help! As rage and regret threatened to consume me, a lone voice dragged me back. I turned in the direction from which the voice came, and the moment I did, I realized that my initial fear had been realized. Oh, look at who we have here. I heard you were seeking refuge in this village, but I never thought I'd actually find you. Ito. I dashed towards Chiyo's voice the moment she cried out, unaware of the absurd sight awaiting me. Dressed in the same outfit I had worn last year, that of the captain of the Kodokushi, was Ito, my childhood friend and rival. So you do remember me after all. It's been so long that I feared you may have forgotten me. Thankfully, that appears not to be the case. As I drew closer, Ito tightened his grip, bringing the edge of his katana an inch away from Chiyo's throat. You don't want the last remaining citizen of this village to be beheaded, do you? Or could it be that you're finally taken a liking to killing children? Ito smirked arrogantly, knowing well that I wouldn't want the death of an innocent bystander to hang over my head. Just kidding. I know you aren't like that. That's why you quit in the first place, right? Because you didn't have the stones for it anymore. Such a shame. You always possessed so much skill, yet never properly applied yourself to your job. Not that I'm complaining. Your betrayal just gave me one more chance to show everyone that I am your superior. I silently glared at Ito, contemplating my next move. I couldn't risk harming Chiyo, but at the same time I realized that doing nothing was not an option. I needed to bide time until an opening presented itself. What's wrong, Ko? So scared you can't talk? How embarrassing. The former captain of Kodokushi has been reduced to a simple villager. Is this why you left Mirai? So you could live among other weaklings like yourself and... Stop listening to him, Ko. You aren't a weakling. You're the strongest person I've ever known. But strength is meaningless if you don't use it. You said you would protect us, right? Then stop listening to him and do something, Ko. Caught off guard, Ito looked down at Chiyo for a moment. He then looked back at me, with the same disgusting smirk plastered on his face. You may not have forgotten about me, but it does sound like you've already gotten over Haruka. It hasn't been even a year and a half, yet you've already moved on from the death of your wife. Ko, please don't just stand there. Please, I already told you I don't want to die. Haruka must be turning in her grave, watching her husband screw a little girl every night. Is it true that younger is better? I've always wondered, but never actually gotten around to seeing for myself. Why aren't you doing anything? Please, Koichiro, do something. How does this girl compare to Haruka? When the lights go out, do you pretend she's still with you? Koichiro! Silence. Classic bullshit that anime samurai move. In a split second cutting out 3 other people. Probably without even stepping away from his spot. Just unsheathe the blade. Silence indeed. Ito and Chiyo both stared in amazement, unable to follow my movements as I instantaneously cut down all of Ito's men. Their bodies fell to the floor without a sound, sliced open with cuts too fine to be made by a human. It wasn't until after their bodies fell apart that the blood escaped their corpses, pooling on the ground around Ito's feet. Classic. Ko? After my display, Chiyo was the first to speak up. She looked at me with wide eyes, unable to believe what I had just done. Well, yeah, he was like the most experienced one for a reason. But Chiyo was not the target of my focus. Not yet. Ito. Ha! Ito jumped as I spoke his name. My voice was low and filled with malice, so much so that I surprised even myself. Did you really think that a surprise attack and a hostage would be enough to take me out? I took a step towards Ito. How foolish. What was it that you called yourself before? My superior? I took another step forward, readying my blade. Ridiculous. Surely you do not believe that. I don't care how long it's been. I have always been without equal. You were just too arrogant to accept it. I raised my blade, pointing it over Chiyo's shoulder and directly at Ito's face. You should have just left me live here to live out my days in peace. Now, prepare yourself. By the time I had finished speaking, Ito's expression had turned from one of surprise to that of pure terror. His hands shook, and it seemed as though he would drop his blade at any second. No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't kill me. I'm your best friend. Your only friend. My unchanging expression told Ito how little impact his words were having. Please, I'll leave, okay? I'll go back to Mirai and tell them you died in battle. How pathetic. Where did your confidence from a moment ago disappear to, Ito? You brazenly insulted me, mocked Haru's death, insinuated that I would defile a young girl, and now you suddenly beg for forgiveness? Burn in hell, my best friend. I pulled my blade back and stepped forward, carefully maneuvering around Chiyo as I... Wait a minute. A split second before I could pierce Ito's throat, Chiyo shouted out. I rested my blade on Ito's shoulder, not taking my eyes off of him for a moment as I questioned Chiyo's command. What is it, Chiyo? Can you see that I'm in the middle of something? To put it mildly, in the middle of something. Sure. I spoke to Chiyo in a cold yet non-aggressive tone. Though she tried to hide it, I could see that Chiyo was already frightened, both by the village-wide slaughter and the Koichiro she thought she knew. So for her sake, if only for a moment, I showed an ounce of control. You shouldn't. Chiyo fumbled to find the right words as she twitched nervously. You shouldn't kill your friend. I shifted my gaze away from Ito for a moment. Chiyo, though frightened, appeared to be fairly calm, making her words carry slightly more weight. Nonetheless, I could only stare at her in confusion, completely incapable of understanding her plea. Are you insane? Listen to the girl, Ko. You don't want to do this. Ignoring Ito's desperate shriek, I prompted Chiyo once more. Chiyo, this man just slaughtered our entire village. The day when we met, he did the exact same thing. He may very well be the man who killed your parents. Give me one good reason why I shouldn't end his very existence. Chiyo let out a brief sigh, as though she had hoped I'd ask that very question. Just like my father once told me, life is precious, Chiyo, and preserving life is something you should never feel bad about. Sneak emotional attack. Like my father. I opened my eyes wide in shock, completely unprepared for what I just heard. Chiyo immediately gained my full attention, and in doing so, allowed Ito to escape. Taking advantage of my close proximity, Ito shoved Chiyo into my arms, then ran for his life. But rather than give chase, I felt content to hold Chiyo in my arms, still staring at her in amazement. The young girl from back then, who astounded me with her strong will to live, once again proved worthy of praise. Talking someone down when they're prepared to kill is not easy. It requires delicacy and precise knowledge of the would-be killer. Despite that, Chiyo, a girl who showed me nothing but fear moments ago prior, was able to pull it off without the slightest hint of difficulty. Once again, Chiyo has shown me how truly amazing she is. As Ito fled and our village burned down, Chiyo returned my blank stare with a smile. Come on, Ko. There's no time to waste. It may be too late to save the villagers, but we can at least stop the fire. Yes, I suppose you're right. I don't know how much of the village we'll be able to save, but let's do what we can. And when we're done, we shall rebuild our lives once more. Well, damn, that's... Wonder no more. Credits. Let's put myself away. Writer, programmer, creator, Zetsubo. Producer, Carl Tyner. Unwanted Studios, backgrounds, Rudero. Sprite CGs, Ipari Namud. GUI artwork, Sundown Kid. Music, Lemon Nias. SFX, TC630. MIDI Magician, Minion89. Voice acting. Well, we didn't really hear any of that because I decided that's not going to happen. Fonts is a Kuraba Things Engine RMP75 numbers. Sure. Post-log. As Hotsu village burned to the ground, Chiyo and I had a decision to make. Her home, and more recently mine, could only be rebuilt so many times. Further to that, the Kodokushi, and thus the Mirai Kingdom, knew where to find us, making the village a definite target. If we chose to embrace the familiarity of Kotsu, we would eventually be hunted down. On the other hand, we could only wander for so long. The food and water we could carry from the forest was not without limit, and neither one of us knew where we might find another habitable village. Leaving Hotsu, though certainly was a wise choice, would not guarantee us salvation. Instead, the gamble might leave us without supplies in the middle of nowhere, or trapped in an enemy village. Even knowing this, Chiyo and I ultimately decided to take the horse of one of the fallen samurai. We headed in the opposite direction of Mirai, towards the kingdom I once opposed. A kingdom in which we could find protection from the Kodokushi, knowing that even they wouldn't dare tread in such place. I'm still not sure about this. Will they really take us in? I've never been this far away from Mirai before. Quit worrying, Ko. This isn't the Mirai Kingdom we're talking about. Not everyone settles disputes with swords, you know. True enough, while Mirai was seemingly set on expansion, the kingdom we were traveling towards possessed no such goal. Not once had I heard of them burning down villagers or extorting resources from others. Despite their military might, the kingdom opposing Mirai appeared to value peace. Be that as it may, we have no way of knowing whether we'll be accepted or not. What will we do if they turn us away? They won't turn us away. Even Hotsu occasionally traded with other villages. If we tell them that Mirai wiped out our village, they'll definitely take us in. Just don't tell them that you were the captain of the Kodokushi, okay? Of course, even I wouldn't say something that tactless. Laughing at Chiyo's optimism and humble plea, my mood picked back up. Worried though I may be, I knew that Chiyo was right, and we had already come too far to turn back. Worry not, when we arrive, I'll tell them who I am, not who I once was. I am Koichiro Ayase, a wandering samurai hunted by the Mirai Kingdom, who seeks nothing more than refuge for his beloved daughter. Aw, well that's neat. Well, that's nice. And that's the end of it. And that is the end of Wander No More. Well, that was lovely. That was neat. I mean, a bit depressing about all the death, obviously. But aside from that, it was very engaging. I really liked it, this one. This was really good. This one was really good. Neat. Good. Neat. I don't have anything else to say. It was very nice. It was a very nice little thing. So, like, you know, I guess we're done now. For now. It's an intermission, so time for the random music recommendations anyway. So this time around we have Calma Lambada, Gruntly Buffalo, Lone Star Song, Takayosaki Fender from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure thing, Aerosmith, Amazing, and then Scorpions, Don't Stop at the Top. And that's that. That's that. I guess we'll just leave it at that. Again, Wander No More. Solid visual novel. Little story. Enjoyed it. A lot. Lots of different emotions. Very different time period and stuff like that. But yeah, it was good. It was good. It was good. I liked it. Alright then. Peace out for now. Ta-ta.